Hello, hello, and welcome back to Kim Talks Resilience. I'm Kim Hayden, your host, and if this is your first time joining us, welcome. You're going to have a great show today to listen into. Today, we're going to be talking all about investment. How do you align yourself? How do you get to where you can exit rich? And this is super important, especially in today's world when we're sitting here going, what's going on? Where's the interest rates going? Where's the housing prices going? Where should I invest my money? Michelle Seiler Tucker is the founder and CEO of Seiler Tucker Incorporated, and she's an author. She holds the M&AMI, which work with me here, folks, Mergers and Acquisitions Masters Intermediary. That is her title. She is also a certified mergers and acquisition professional. That's a CM and AP, and a certified senior business analyst. That is CSBA. I love this. Like this, basically, we're talking with a gal today with an entire alphabet of expertise behind her name. Michelle also owns many other businesses in several different industries. As a 20-year veteran in the M&A industry, she is regarded as the leading authority in buying, selling, fixing, and growing businesses. She and her firm have sold businesses in almost every vertical and have a remarkable track record of success. Michelle's book, Exit Rich, joins forces with Sharon Lechter, finance expert and author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, to create a must-have guide for all business owners. Whether they're gearing up to sell a business now or just getting started building out their company into something that they can sell for a profit in the future. Michelle Seiler Tucker is the gal you want to know. So let's bring her into studio here. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Kim. How are you?
I am doing fabulous. Okay, first up, huge, like literally the alphabet behind your name. So I know for a fact that we are not even going to be able to get we're only going to be at the tip of the iceberg in 30 minutes. But let's first dive into a little bit of like who you are and where are you. So give us a little bit of background as to who you are and where can we find you, like what part of the world are you in?
Okay, so we'll start with what part of the world. So I was born in California, Long Beach, California. My family moved to Austin, Texas when I was 10. And the main reason for that is because my father came from a family of 12 siblings and they got in a huge fight. So he just decided to pack us all up in the middle of the night and move us to Austin. True story, you can't make that up.
Oh,
And so I lived in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas. Dallas, I met my husband, who's from New Orleans. And so now I'm in New Orleans.
oh my God, you're my favorite place in the United States. And it
Oh, New
literally,
Orleans?
yeah,
Yeah.
New Orleans. I have been there 3 times. I love New Orleans. I swear there's more talent playing instruments and tapping on the sidewalks in
Yeah.
and throughout in New Orleans than all of LA. It's just sorry guys if somebody's out there and they're all mad at me, but the reality is New Orleans is absolutely so rich. Been to all the museums. I love all the little sidewalks. So yes, now I've got to put you on my must visit list. So I'm planning my
Absolutely.
2024 couch surfing tour and I'm going all the way to Amsterdam. So got to
Oh,
dip.
wow. I've been to Amsterdam. I love Amsterdam.
Amazing. Okay, so let's dive into this. We don't have a lot of time, and there's so much to unpack here, especially in today's world. So we're seeing not only in the United States, but we're seeing globally. There's a lot of economic upset. There's a lot of like we're just seeing in Italy itself is for the first time in what half a century is switching its economic or its political landscape. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I feel that experts like you can add a little bit of confidence to people's future. Is that a kind of a good analysis?
I mean, I think so. I hope so. I know from a business standpoint, I definitely can. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what you do.
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've owned lots of different businesses in different industries. I did, I always told my mom I would never get a job, but I did end up getting a job at Xerox. I was hired, and my nickname was the closer. So every time somebody couldn't close a deal, they would bring me in. And within 6 months of Xerox, I got promoted to national regional vice president, overseeing 150 sales reps. I hated it. I didn't like working for corporate America, so I ended up leaving. And I started my own franchise development, franchise consulting, franchise sales business where I was a franchise partner with different franchisees. And I had so many existing sellers and buyers, who kept asking, "Well, do you have any existing businesses? We want to sell our existing business, or we don't want to buy a franchise. We want to buy an existing business." So I ended up transitioning out of franchise sales, which I still do franchise consulting and franchise development. But I ended up transitioning. See, now you got me saying things wrong.
It's contagious.
So I ended up transitioning into mergers and acquisitions a little over 20 years ago. So I've been in this industry about 22 years, sold hundreds upon hundreds of businesses. We don't just sell companies, we specialize in fixing them, because if I just sold companies, I probably would starve to death, since 80 to 90% of businesses on the market will never sell, according to Steve Forbes, who wrote a glowing testimonial for my newest book, Exit Rich. So I'll hold that up real quick. But so I'm an author of Exit Rich, international speaker, keynote speaker. And anyway, so we specialize in partnering with business owners, helping them fix their business. Invest my money, my time, my energy, my resources. I also just started an Exit Rich program, the Road to Exit Rich, where we help business owners identify what that GPS exit model is, help them plan, their exit strategy, and help them really define that. And we're working with companies who want to sell for $1 billion. So we're doing the roadmap to $1 billion, reverse engineering the plan. And, I'm an equity partner with many of these companies, but we actually put them on the road. So we get all their ducks in a row. We help them figure out, what do they want to sell for? What's their destination? What's their business worth today? What's their time frame? Who are their buyers going to be? Where do their numbers need to end? And then we build their business on what we call the 6 Ps, which is the infrastructure of your business based upon people. People, number one, people. You don't build a business, you build people. Then, of course, we get into the product, processes, proprietary, patrons, and profits.
Oh, wow. I like that. I like all those P's. I work in P's also, but totally different because I work in P's in real estate. So, price,
Okay.
presentation, and position. So I think and I would, like I said, I'd love to actually do another podcast because I just think that there's so much wealth of information with you, Michelle. I'd like to actually jump back. It's funny because you said Xerox. Xerox, every person that I have met that is successful at Xerox actually has gone on to build really successful careers on their own. What
Yep.
is the number one thing you learned from Xerox? Because I know they had a really intensive training program. What's the number one thing you learned at Xerox that helped you become the closer?
Well, I was already the closer. So, I mean, I was closing deals left and right for other businesses I owned. I think so. I was already the closer, but you're right about that. I mean, Starbucks and Robert Kiyosaki and so many huge names. I think Sarah Blanky. I think
Yep.
uh, she was at Xerox. I would say, that's a tough question. What's the number one thing? They obviously have the best training in the world at their Leesburg, Virginia facility. I would say, gosh, um, I don't know, because I came to the table with so many skills as it was. You know what I would say? I would say probably more focus on features, advantages, and benefits. Like we all talk about that when we're selling, right? We talk about features, advantages, and what benefits the client. It's all about the benefits. And Xerox is really good at, taking a deep dive and really narrowing that scope and making sure that you listen, because so many salespeople just talk, talk, talk. They never shut up and listen. And Xerox is all about shut up, listen, and really, really, really tune in to what's in it for them, what's in it for the client, what are they trying to accomplish, what are their pain points, and how can you solve it. So I
Yeah.
think that's probably one of them. Leadership, I know you asked for one. They really do teach leadership. They teach, how to demonstrate equipment and, the philosophy around that. Um, but I came with a lot of those skills because they actually hired me from the competition.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, because
Brilliant.
they couldn't beat me. They would walk in with 4 or 5 suits competing against me because I was working for OSE. And I haven't been
Ah.
for OSE. I only worked at OSE for a few months before Xerox recruited me. And I would beat them every single time.
Now, here's a question. This is going to seem really odd. Were you a Girl Scout? Did you ever hawk
Well,
cookies?
not a
No?
Girl Scout, no.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because that I relate everything back to selling cookies without grabbing people's cash without actually giving them anything because you have to buy your cookies beforehand and wait 3 weeks for the reward. Um, I'd like to take what you're talking about and pivot this just a little bit because we have um, online coaching is one of the fastest growing industries. It's estimated to be, what is it, $125 billion industry by 2025. What can somebody who's building a brand, and just so you know, ladies out there, if you're listening and you're going, I want to be an overnight success, there is no overnight success. Sarah Blakely, she was out pounding the pavement begging somebody to build the first pantyhose for her. What is something somebody can start implementing from the beginning when they're building? So there's somebody like yourself, Michelle, that has years in the industry of their specialty, and now they're going to create a course on it that they want to go out and sell. And this is, like I said, $125 billion industry by 2025. What can they do today while building it to ensure that they have a sellable, a sellable product? Or
So,
is it
so just
sellable?
so I understand the question, they want to go out, who's they? They want to go out and
So
build.
women are building
Yeah.
an online business from their zone of genius. What
Okay.
could they do to ensure that they choose to sell it
Yeah.
on down the road to retire? What could they
Gotcha.
do today to
Well, the
implement?
number one thing you need to do, the number one thing, there's so many things, but the number one thing you need to do is actually build a business. Build a business that works for you rather than you creating a glorified job that you go to work at every day. And that's why 80 to 90% of businesses never sell is because entrepreneurs are working in it, not on it, and the business won't run without them. Buyers are not buying jobs, they're buying businesses. So the number one thing you need to do is build a business. And how do you build a business? Well, you build that on what I call the 6 P's. Number one, you got to get the people in place. You got to have a team. If it's just you, if it's just a lifestyle business, it's not sellable.
Okay.
So you got to put the right people in the right seats. You got to ask the who question. Who handles who handles the videos, who handles quality control, who handles production, who gets the guest, who. We want to make sure that you're not doing any of the who's because you really want to build a business. Now, of course, in the beginning, you will. You
Yeah.
will. You'll have to do a lot of different things. And I always love it when people say, well, Michelle, I can't afford to hire anybody. You can't afford not to. You can't afford not to. If you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. And if we're talking about just getting started, go get an intern. Go get interns. I mean, we are centered between 6 different colleges. So we have a huge waiting list for analyst interns, for marketing interns, for all different types of interns. Get an intern, get an independent contractor, but you really got to take stock of what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and hire your weaknesses. And make sure you do the who test. That's number one is people. Number two is product, making sure that hey, you're building an online course. Great. What does that mean? Have you looked at your competitors? Have you looked at people in the space? What's lacking? Don't do what everybody else does. Find out something
Yep.
unique to you and make sure you create those differences. And you want to make sure in products, you also have multiple ways you get paid. You don't want to get paid just because somebody goes online and watches your video. Get them into some type of newsletter. Get them into some type of monthly subscription. Is there a SaaS product that you can add? Really look at how you can add multiple revenue streams. And then processes. You can have the best people in the world and have the worst processes, and you're never going to be productive and efficient and scalable and sustainable. So you really got to go back and ask yourselves when you're designing this business, what do you want your customers to experience? McDonald's did this in 1940s before Ray Kroc came in. It's a great movie for all entrepreneurs to watch. It's called The Founding.
Absolutely, I loved it. That
So,
has
so
Michael Keaton.
yes,
Michael
with
Keaton's
Michael
in it.
Keaton, it's there's so many life lessons in that movie,
Hmm.
so many entrepreneurial lessons, and one of the biggest things is, don't create processes around the owner's agenda. I mean, that's what every doctor in America or in Canada does. Is they're like, okay, our hours are from 9 to 4, Monday through Friday, or we're closed half a day on Friday. You got to do what the McDonald brothers did, and they said we're going to create a fast food system. Our processes around the customer's experience. What are the three things you want your clients to experience? They said, great tasting food, 30 seconds or less, fast, and hot. So come up with three things you want your customers to experience and then grow your business, your processes around the experience. If you don't do that, you're not going to keep market share and you'll never
Absolutely.
grow anything. And then, really important is your proprietary. If you're growing online courses or whatever it is that you're building, you got to make sure. I just talked to a lady the other day that's doing this huge, so she says, international business. I looked at her company name. I said, you don't even have a trademark. There's a bunch of other companies out there that have a federal trademark, and you don't. You're never going to be global unless you protect your IP. So, ladies, don't just go to GoDaddy and say, "Ooh, I got my name, I got my .com," and get a license in your state or in Canada. And I'm sure in Canada it works the same
It's
way.
all the same. It's all
Yeah,
the
you
same.
need to go get that FTC, that global trademark, and protect your IP because here's the bottom line. You could be, one of the biggest values in business is branding. The more well branded you are, the more I can sell your company for. But you can receive a cease and desist letter because you never checked the database to make sure that company name is available. And you can receive a letter and you've got to stop using that company name, and then you're going to have to hire an attorney and spend a lot of money. Do the homework, do your due diligence, get a trademark attorney, have them look in the database, make sure you can get that name, secure that name. If you can get any patents, on products or any patents on anything that you're producing, any contracts, recurring subscription models will drive your multiple exponentially. So work on getting a reoccurring model. Any type of celebrity endorsements. We have a client whose business is on Oprah's favorite things. Every time they get on Oprah's favorite things, it blows them up. So look at what kind of publicity can you get? What kind of shows can you get on? A lot of times in America, I don't know about Canada, but you can go on a CBS morning show and not pay any money. You just have to give them a percentage of the products that sell.
Yep.
So IP proprietary is the number one value driver. So make sure you're building that database. WhatsApp paid $19 billion for Facebook. I'm sorry, I said it backwards. Facebook paid $19 billion for WhatsApp, and WhatsApp was hemorrhaging money, but they had a billion users. So buyers are always looking for what are the congruent synergies that you have that can help catapult their business to the next level. So you want to build that IP. Really important. Always keep your IP in a separate corporation. Any contracts you have with your clients, make sure they're transferable because if they're
Yeah.
not transferable and it's an asset sale, your deal can fall apart, or you have to go to each one of your clients and get them to sign a consent to transfer. And we've got
And
a client.
that's even stricter in Canada and the United and in the EU. So if you're looking at Europe, Australia, Canada, it is double opt-in. It is hardcore, and they will go after you. And it's like $50,000 for an infraction. So yeah, I know somebody who
But
had
you got to make
three.
sure those are transferable because if they're not, you'll never sell your company. The
Yeah.
agreements that you have with your clients and your vendors, your manufacturers, distributors, producers, you got to make sure all of those agreements are transferable. Otherwise,
Yep.
you have nothing to sell.
And
And
that can go right in the fine print when they do double opt-in. So when they opt in, it can be right in the front fine print.
Yeah, and
So
then make sure it says this contract is transferable upon a new entity
yeah,
without prior consent. Because we have a media company right now that's got 2,000 clients. The buyer won't do a stock sell, so they're having to go to 2,000 clients because none of their contracts are transferable. This is a huge problem in the United States, and business owners just don't seem to comprehend this because they're like, "Oh yeah, Michelle, I have that, I have that." I have never seen a business owner in 22 years actually have the transferable clause in their contracts.
well, and we saw this hit about 15 years ago with Canada's Privacy Act, and it directly impacted all the real estate agents because it used to be that you could sell your database, right? Yeah, I have
Yeah.
1,500 people in my database. Well, none of those ever signed an agreement that I could sell that database. And as soon as that came in, I lost everything I'd worked on. Like, because,
And that's what we're
yeah,
talking about. We're talking about that
yeah,
transferable clause.
yeah,
It says you can sell the database. That's a very good point because I'm talking about selling the company. You're talking about selling the database.
yeah,
That's a great, great, great point that I hope everybody picks up on. And
yeah,
then the 50 is Patreons. You want to also make sure, and if you're building an online business, you're going to have customer diversification.
yeah,
You just gotta be very careful. Like we're selling a $60 million company right now, and they have 70% customer concentration. We went through hundreds of buyers to find one who's comfortable with that type of concentration. And then the last P is profits. Buyers don't want to buy failing companies. So you really I always say lack of profits, Kim, is never your problem. It's a symptom of not having the other five P's in place. If you don't have the right people, you're not going to be profitable. If your process is not buttoned up, you're not going to be as profitable. If you're out there spending hundreds of thousands of dollars fighting IP, then you're not going to
yeah.
be as profitable. So you're going to need to know your profit margin. But I would start building your business on the infrastructure with the six P's. Get my book Exit Rich, but also, go into business like Stephen. I think it was Stephen Covey who says start with the end in mind. And that's the same thing with business. When you buy or start a business, you want to go in it with the end in mind, believe it or not, because you'll create a much
No,
better business. It's like our kids. We don't just let our kids eat all the junk food they want to eat. We don't let our kids watch all the social media they want, watch all the TV they want. We're preparing our children. We're
exactly.
preparing them to get in the best schools. We're preparing them to have the right friends to think like we would, to have that common sense. We're preparing them for college. Well, you need to do the same with your business. And you need to really prepare that for the exit. It's called the GPS exit model.
Yeah, so plan for the exit is knowing what you have. If you plan for success, it's a whole lot easier than just trying to get through the next day. And I know that when you apply the four M's, so in universities they teach management, market, momentum, and money. Like you have to, even before you even can get to the P's, you have to really step back and say, is there really a market for this, right? It's truly understanding. And I think that we get caught up in ourselves because we get in these tunnel situations. Everybody tells us, or a silo, more like a silo. And everybody around us is like, oh my God, you're so smarter. Oh, you did this and that. What happens in a singular set may very well be because of you, right? Because they did what? Direct Sellers Magazine 10 years ago did a survey of like 2,000 people. Do you recall what you purchased at the last Direct Sellers home party? And 80% said no, but almost 100% could say yes, they remembered who they purchased from. And I think this is the biggest challenge we see in businesses, is that we are told repeatedly how good we are, and this is like real estate, and yet the systems aren't in place, the processes aren't in place, so that longevity cannot take place.
Mhm.
Before we dive into your book, real quickly, I'd love to have you share with me a time of resiliency within your business, that or life, whatever works for you, that without that moment of resiliency and how you worked through it, that we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Mm. In business or life, huh?
Yeah, anything that really points out the amazingness of who you are and why people should listen to you.
And I got to think about that. Well, in business, I would tell you one of the biggest, um, one of the biggest times we really had to be resilient, which is like everybody else, was during this pandemic, right? Because we had pretty much zero activity in 2020. I wrote my book in 2019. I think I finished it like right at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. We were going to launch in April of 2020. And of course, we had to do what everybody else did. We had to pivot. And because we had Sharon Lechter, and I'm sure you've heard of Sharon Lechter. She's
I actually, right before the pandemic, I sat next to her at a private luncheon. So, and just so
oh,
everybody knows, Sharon Lechter, I mean, that's a huge win for you, Michelle. Not only Rich Dad Poor Dad, but most people don't realize that she spent 8 years contracted with the U.S. White House on the U.S. government on rectifying the parasitic practices of credit cards on our universities. Like, this gal is a powerhouse when it comes to money. So soon as I saw that in your resume, I'm going, okay, I gotta listen to Michelle. Because if Michelle can get Sharon to work on something with her, Michelle's got to know her stuff. So,
I do.
I love Sharon. I think Sharon's one of the amazing women. Okay, sorry, totally
And that's the
interrupted.
biggest thing credit is credit literacy, financial literacy, because of her son. Her son racked up a bunch of
Yep.
credit cards. I don't know if you heard that story.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So everybody, Sharon's this huge financial guru. Her son goes off to university, and back in the 80s and 90s at the universities, they'd sit there and they go, oh, get free pizza, fill out for this credit card, get a free towel, fill out for this credit card. And the credit cards were all sitting on the campuses. And the reason we don't see that today is because of Sharon Lechter,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
her son came home, I think, with what, $40,000 in $500 credit cards, but he had a whole stack of towels.
Yeah. So we had to pivot during COVID and not come out in April 2020. And her, both of us had a lot of speaking events. I'm an international speaker, of course, she is as well. And all of our speaking events got canceled. So we had to really pivot and say, okay, what do we do now? Because we're going after all the bestsellers, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, etc. And we just started doing really grassroots marketing, her and I. I mean, I was on over 400 podcasts. She went on Grant Cardone's, stage and actually broke our system. And she called me. She said they're trying to order and they can't order, and I had to call GoDaddy and increase our bandwidth. But we also had no business in 2020. We had nothing coming in. We had no money coming in. Now, this is why we say congruent, to have congruent revenue streams, have congruent profit centers, because I own medical businesses. I own a graphic company that specializes in first responders. So I was getting money from those companies. When I say my business was completely dead, it was completely dead while we're spending all this money on the launch. And I just hung in there because I knew this too shall pass. I knew, that things would turn around. And again, my biggest lesson from that is don't have one revenue stream. I would have been in hot water and been diving into savings. A lot of people don't have savings. A lot of businesses don't have savings. And I would have been really dipping in there if I didn't have these other companies. So those other companies really supported me through that timeline. But I always knew as a young kid is never rely upon one bucket. You always need multiple buckets to make sure you keep your boat afloat. So I would say that in my personal life, I lost a son. In
Oh,
my personal life at the age of 3, and that was very heartbreaking. That was beyond. I never thought I would get past that, and I was suicidal. And if it wasn't for my brother, just saying, Michelle, it's going to get better. It's going to get better. I never thought it would get better. And that's the biggest thing I've ever been through in my entire life.
yeah. Now I am blessed that I personally have never had to face those things. I've had moments where a kid was in a car accident and that car accident, 3 seconds difference. Am I, so I can't even fathom losing all the potential, everything you saw in that child,
Yeah,
from the moment of conception.
right.
And that definitely does shift who you are today. That it shifts who you are moving forward when you have such a significant loss. And I appreciate you being real and sharing that, because a lot of women sit there and we sit in our own silo and we go, well, I want to be like this person, but I come from a childhood of poverty, or I don't have a high school diploma, or I lost a child or a partner to cancer. That person looks like everything is great. And I just want people to know, and the reason I ask about this question of resiliency is
Mm.
that I have yet to meet a woman who is doing amazing things that hasn't had her resiliency completely tested, her mettle totally tested. And I really do appreciate you sharing that very real, raw moment. Um,
Yeah, you're
Sorry.
welcome. I don't really share it hardly ever because I don't want to, of course I get upset.
Yes.
But Sharon and I have that in common, actually. And I don't even know if Sharon knows that about me. She will.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
Yes.
I share it
Yes.
often. I try to live in a state of, moving forward, looking forward, not backwards. I mean, obviously, it's something you'll never get over and something you can never forget. But life does still go
Absolutely.
on, and we could still have, a great life. One of my true inspirations is Joyce Myers, and I love her. I listen to her every morning, but it's difficult, and you know,
And this is why I asked this at the second half of the, the podcast, is because I want everybody to hear how amazing you are, and then also understand, just like everybody else, pants go on one leg at a time. We all deal with challenges. Nobody gets out of this world for free or easy. And that's why the wins are so incredible, because you're living your life to your fullest, to honor and respect those, not only yourself, but those that aren't to be able to be there step to step with you. So what an incredible legacy that not only you are leaving yourself, but you're helping others to leave.
right.
And that's what's impressive here. So
Yeah,
let's
and I
dive
think
in.
it's. I was just going to agree with you and say that's such a strong point you're making because I'm a speaker and I speak at a mastermind quarterly, and a gentleman was texting me and saying, people are intimidated by you. Men are intimidated by you. They're afraid of you. Blah blah blah. And I'm like the nicest person on the planet, but I'm a powerhouse, especially when I'm on stage, and I'm confident. And sometimes I can be mistaken for arrogance. And I say, look,
Only if you're a
I'm
woman can it be
not
mistaken for arrogance. Only if you're a
exactly.
woman. Yeah,
Exactly.
sorry,
Maybe because I grew
sorry.
up with men, but yeah, so it's so funny because this guy, he's Canadian, and one of the guys, not the guy who said everybody's intimidated by you, but his wife was intimidated by me. But he said, Michelle, you need to tell your story because I've had a pretty troubled childhood, really troubled childhood, and he said you need to tell your story because people can relate with you. They see you up there, they see you're a powerhouse. Yes, you're
Yep.
experienced, but they're taking it as arrogance. And you need to tell your story. And sure enough, when I told my story, I didn't want to. I didn't want to. He was, I felt like he was making me. People were coming up to me in a whole different way saying, oh my God, I had no idea. Like I just had a gentleman the other day say, Michelle, I didn't like you because I assumed you were
Yep.
arrogant. I assumed you were this and this and this. He says, but I was wrong. And he said, you're not arrogant, you're confident based upon your experience. And yes, you might dress up. Yes, you might be a little flashy. You might be a little this or that. But you're like the nicest, sweetest person I've ever met in my life. And he goes, and you're so intelligent. So I think what you're trying to, showcase women in this light that look, I'm not perfect. I might come across as perfect because I've been a work in process for a very long time, for decades. I'm a work in process, getting over, one obstacle, one hurdle at a time like every other woman has. And so it's really imperative to know that when you're judging, the women judge women all the time.
all the
Women
time.
shouldn't be judging other women because you never know where that person came from.
Absolutely. And I think giving grace to each other, uh, and to ourselves is the way we will change the paradigm within the world and who holds the money and how the world moves.
1,000%.
Um,
And it drives me crazy when I hear women talk about other women, you know? And I have friends that will do that. I'm like, no, 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 no. No, we're not doing that. We're not going there. Doesn't matter if her outfit doesn't match. Doesn't matter if you would never wear those shoes. It doesn't matter. Stop, But it's
yep.
so prevalent for women to put down women, and women need to support women, not put them down.
I 110% agree. From Michelle's lips to your ears, folks. That's what we got to do. We got to rally behind. Now, Michelle, what can we learn? This is the area, the podcast where we always talk books. And because you are a published author, with, well, multiple, you've published a few, haven't you?
I have. I
Yeah.
have.
But
Yep.
your most recent is Exit Rich. What are the three things that we read your book? We get your book and we read your book. What are the three things we will take away? What are the top three things?
Well, number one is planning your beginning from the end. Really following that GPS exit model. People don't plan to fail, they fail to plan. And the GPS exit model is number one. That's going to set you up for success. That's going to help you create the sustainable, scalable, and when you're ready, sellable business. That's number one. Number two is really understanding what buyers buy, like what are buyers looking for. Because if you can create your business from the beginning with the buyers buying criteria in mind, then you're going to build a sellable business from the beginning. You're not going to come back later. And that's why 80 to 90% of businesses never sell, because business owners don't think about their exit strategy. They don't think about selling their company until a catastrophic event occurs. And that could be internal, health issues, partners disputes, divorce, death. And there's this external as well, catastrophic events. Those are hurricanes, tornadoes, fires. What we just had or still experiencing is this pandemic. You don't want to get caught in a situation where you have to sell. You want to be able to sell when you're ready to sell for your price tag,
Yeah.
for your terms. And so, very important to know what buyers are looking for. The third thing is what we've already sort of talked about, was really building your business with the proper infrastructure, because businesses are not sellable because they don't have the right people. The business is 1,000% dependent upon the owner. Business owners created themselves a glorified a job versus a business that works for them. And then making sure that you have built that business with the right people, with the right team, with the right processes. You're in the right industry. You got congruent revenue streams. So if something happens to one revenue, I mean, that's what happened to restaurants. Think about it during this pandemic. Restaurants get one way they get paid. When people come in and eat or take food to go. What about, having an online e-commerce business? What about having some proprietary, um, mixtures, food, sauces,
Yep.
whatever that you can sell? And so, and protect that proprietor. So those are the three big things. Number one, the GPS exit. Number two, build your business on the infrastructure. Number three, look at what buyers are looking for, and always do everything with the consumer, with the customer, with the client experience in mind.
Yeah. Because as a business, if they already know you, they've already like you've already earned their trust. That's literally just the beginning of the entire journey. But you have to get those three things. Once you have that in your product or whatever, then how are you securing them? And I think this is the biggest thing that people, they run from transaction to transaction. And we see this in real estate. Real estate agents are, um, notorious for running transaction to transaction. They say you're only as good as your last deal. And
Yeah.
I really do not, I challenge that repeatedly, right? Things can change things. And, if you had something that was really successful before the pandemic and you struggled and it didn't, you end up, you're starting over, it's okay. What is it? Julie Wainwright just came out of the pandemic with proprietary, software for tagging and flagging, luxury products. She owns the Real Real, and this is a gal who very publicly failed when it, what was it, the what pet food it was, what was the name of the pets.com or something. So I just want everybody to know that if you're still sucking air, you're still this side of the dirt, you're still moving forward, there are opportunities. But do grab this book, Exit Rich. We can get this on Amazon, is that correct?
Yes, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Hudson Bookstores, Barnes and Nobles. And the audio version just came out in June of this year, Kim. So you can also go to the audio version on Amazon.
And did you read that or did you hire it out? Because you've got a
No,
beautiful accent.
oh, see, thank you so much. You're so sweet. I've never liked my voice or my accent. But no, I didn't read it. And only not because of that. I didn't read it because you talk about a painstaking process and you talk
Yeah.
about focus on your strengths, higher your weaknesses. I read my very first book, Selling Business for More Than It's Worth. And oh my gosh, it was, I rate it as bad as having labor.
Yes, it is. It is.
And
I
it is, and I'm like, you know what? It's not my strength. I'm not that crazy about my voice. I'm gonna hire an expert to read it. And we did the same thing with Sharon because she just simply ran out of time to read hers. She wanted to read her part. But yeah, I go back to focus on your strengths, and that's not one of my strengths. And there's so many other things I could do with that time.
So, Michelle, can you share with us where we can find you, how we could engage you? Somebody, do you have, I don't know, this is really a random question and it's not in your bio anywhere. And I'm probably asking something that's not even available, but do you have any type of downloads, coaching programs, anything that goes with the Exit Rich or anything that help can people engage with you and learn from you further?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Yes, for anyone who buys Exit Rich, there's bonuses throughout the book. Throughout Exit Rich, there's all kinds of downloads. There's video downloads. There's documents. There's documents on how to put together an org chart, how to create a non-compete, how to create a policy and procedure handbook. How to create a book of wow. Book of wow is, Kim, you would probably love because what we do on Book of Wows is every time somebody in our organization or in a company creates a wow that moves you up that branding ladder, then that goes in that book for everybody in the company to see. Every time they do something that is an unwow and moves you down that branding ladder and upsets the public, then we put that in that book. So we have samples of books of wows. We have samples of everything you need to sell a business, letter of intent, due diligence checklist, quality of earnings checklist. We have closing documents. We have everything you need to run your company, sell your business at SeilerTuckerAcademy.com. And once you purchase the book, then you'll be able to engage and get all those downloads. And that's whether you purchase audio or the print version. The audio version is still available for like $4, so it's a really good buy. And as far as getting in contact with me, you can go to my main website, which is Seiler Tucker, which is Michelle at SeilerTucker.com. And then there's an easy one, which is STI at 360.com. And it has all of my information. It's also interesting, we have different quizzes you can take, like the 6P quiz to see what P's that you're strong on, and then what your weakest P's, and what type of business do you own, what type of business owner are you. All of that's at SeilerTucker.com and Seiler Tucker Academy. And again, you can get there by STI at 360.com. And follow me on social media. I'm Michelle Seiler Tucker across all platforms. And then you can also listen to our podcast, Exit Rich.
Oh, there you go, folks. Make sure that goes into your calendar. What days do you typically drop those
We,
episodes?
we draw, so we go live every Tuesday at 12 Central. And then we typically drop that episode 1 to 2 weeks later. And they're usually dropped on every Wednesday. A new episode comes out every Wednesday.
Awesome. Awesome. Because that's one of the keys, folks, consistency. Michelle, you are absolutely phenomenal and what an inspiration. And I think that if everybody goes and grabs that book and then actually look at the sellables and the structures at what you want at the end of your company, if you were to actually do that before you even launched a company, that would be
Yeah.
very interesting. That would be, I think you'd have a very different experience. I think there'd be a whole lot less crying in your wine, folks.
It would be, I always say, get a mentor. Like if you're interested in the Road to Exit Rich program, you have me one on one once a month. Now that's changing, but we're still doing me right now. But we're building a whole coaching program around that. But you have me one on one. I always say, get a mentor, but not just any mentor. Get a mentor that's been down the road you want to travel. It's got specific experience, somebody who's extremely successful. Learn from other people's mistakes.
Learn from other people's mistakes. That's brilliant. Great advice. Um, Quote. Can you just share with us a quote that always inspires you?
I'll share my own quote,
Perfect.
if that's okay. But I have so many quotes. One of them is I think it was Zig Ziglar who said, you don't build a business, you build people, and people build a business." That's Zig Ziglar. My quote is, "It's hard to read label from the inside of the bottle. You need an outsider's perspective to keep you out of the to read the read the warning signs to keep you out of the danger zone." So that's
That
the quote.
that is brilliant. That is a great quote. If you're inside, folks, you don't see the overarching picture, and that's that whole silo effect.
Yeah.
Michelle, I can't thank you enough for coming on and being a voice and being a beacon of leadership, so more women can generate more money, so we have an opportunity to change the paradigm on where the world is sitting. And we ladies, we are the change. We are the change that we want to see, and with women like Michelle leading and guiding, it's there for your taking. So until next time, I'm your host, Kim Hayden, here at Kim Talks Resilience, where women who are founders, coaches, authors, entrepreneurs, and leaders, just we can connect and learn from each other. If you ever feel that your resiliency is lagging just that wee bit, be sure to listen and lean into our resilient community, and you can get your monthly magazine and all access pass to everything on the backside at resilientgift.com. So if you just go to resilientgift.com, I won't berate you with millions of emails and sneaky renewals. There's nothing in there. It's literally a place where we can all connect. Until next time, take care of yourself.